Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. All right, today we have with us Sunny Beutler, and Sunny's journey as CEO, balancing global business leadership with motherhood of four, embodies modern confidence and redefining success for women. Sunny, I'd love for you to share with our listeners a little bit more about you and the story that got you started in the works that you do today.
I grew up with a family business with my parents working really hard and making products in our home basement and selling them to people. And they built a good business out of it, a pretty big business called Sunrider. And I grew up with brothers and my sister, and we did summers at our office. So I'd go to summer school, and then in the afternoon, I'd work at the office and we'd answer phone calls, stuff envelopes, do mail runs, all that, whatever my parents wanted us to do. And we also spent a lot of time talking to our top sales leaders, and we basically grew up with their kids too. My parents encouraged us to love the business as we were growing up, but they also didn't force us to join. I went to college, I got a law degree, and I decided to come back and work for them. I think I surprised them a little bit because I hadn't been planning on doing that. The reason why I wanted to come back was because I felt I did a lot of internships in law school, and I think I probably did a lot more than most kids do. I did about 5 my last 2 years just because I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted. And I realized that doing Sunrider, which is we manufacture and we sell herbal health foods, skincare, cosmetic products, and household products that are good for your family, that I thought I could help a lot more people doing this than I could as a lawyer, taking on case by case or client by client. So I decided to do this. And I remember calling my mom and telling her that, do you realize that you're going to have to work for me and it'll be 24/7? You just answer the call whenever I want. You do whatever I say. I said, okay, I can do that. And so I did. And that's how I started at Sunrider. And started from after that, I worked in this company for about 15 years before we transitioned to me becoming the CEO. And my siblings at some point or in time, we all worked together. And right now, I have one sibling who works full time with me. He's our chief manufacturing officer. And my other brother is our chief medical advisor. And he still has his own clinic that he practices medicine in a few days a week. And then my other 2 siblings are on our board of directors, along with my parents. And so it's a real family business that we talk together all the time about business, about family, and try to make it work.
I love that the authenticity of this journey, like you grew up in it.
Mm.
Did you imagine yourself being now all these years plus the 15 years back into the business as a CEO? Was that ever on your radar?
Not when I started, no, because I was young. I did not know what I was doing. But as the years got on, and my siblings, we all have very different interests and different personalities. And we all realized not all of us wanted to stay in the business. And so we all realized what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. And so then we talked about who's going to take over the company. And so we had a lot of discussions. Took a few years for us to decide. So it was not from the beginning, no.
Especially when you're young and growing up in the business as almost a spectator of it. And then now you're fully in the business. You and your siblings are now running top positions, and how that dynamic has changed. But yet the passion, the loyalty, the commitment, and just so much pride, I would imagine, as just being a family run business for all these years. And not only from that perspective, but your clientele of who you truly serve, because you stand by your products and your services and knowing that they're making a difference. And I think that would be something you guys really hone in on.
We use everything that we make. I think we only made products. My dad would always make it because he saw a need. So my mom had cancer when she was 39. So she was pretty young, and she had to go through radiation chemo, and he couldn't find any skincare products that he felt were safe for her that didn't have a lot of chemicals in it. And so he made it himself for her. And so he called the name of it is called Oilin, which is her first name. So it's our Oilin skincare line. So it's more for sensitive skin. And so, like those kinds of things, I just feel really blessed that my dad is able to make so many products. That he's a chemist and he knows how to put things together. And he's probably the world's foremost herbalist as well. He does Chinese herbs ever since he was a child. He was really sick as a young boy, had severe allergies, and his grandfather would make herbs for him and make him drink it, and they were really disgusting, and he hated it, and so he's, "I'm gonna make it taste better." And so that's what, like, a lot of our products are based off of Chinese herbal medicine, but he made things for himself, and then he made things for my mom, and then eventually made things for us. So we all tried him up growing up, and I think it's a lot easier to be involved in the business because we love the products, and yeah, I've known our top leaders since I was little, and they've seen us grow up, and I know all their kids, and so it makes me feel like my mission and my purpose is more, it's just right in front of me, so I can see it every day.
Yes. And it's especially when you're that close to the products and like you said, having that pride and joy to be a part of it and your items didn't just come from a need necessarily from what your clients were, but they're testimonies and testaments to solving real problems. And you started within your family. And I think that this is what's unique in businesses is you could solve a problem, but then you father solved a different problem.
Yeah.
So changing the direction and making something that is sustainable and something that brings your clients and customers coming back. So I'd be curious to know what were some of the, I guess, some of the struggles or challenges? Because people are like, but she's worked with a family. I'm sure that's not easy, right? Like I worked in my own family business.
Mhm.
I got stories.
Yeah.
It's a
I would say get comfortable with being uncomfortable talking about things and to be as honest as possible, and it's for us, we really have to separate work from personal. So I always tell my siblings, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to tell you did something bad, but it doesn't mean, like, I don't love you, right?" That's not what that means. So work is very different from personal life. With our whole family, there's 32 of us, and so we're trying to maintain that personal relationship while having our work relationship too. But I think the good thing about working as family, at least with us, is we don't take it personally. So if we get an argument about work, that's fine, but we can switch it off and we can talk about something personal and be totally okay. So we never stay upset very long. And I feel like I don't have the energy or the bandwidth to be upset with people. At the end of the day, I'm just like, I'm so tired. That's it. Reset for tomorrow. I can't carry the baggage with me.
I think that's something that we really segue into here is about setting healthy and sustainable boundaries. So how do we protect those and how do we implement them? And how do we hold firm to these boundaries that are not only respectful for you, but you're setting them with the intention to also be mindful and respectful for your family and or your staff that you work with?
I think for us right now, we have, at least at our headquarters, we have a hybrid work policy. And so I let my managers decide for their team how many days a week they come into the office because each team is different. Some teams, I think the more creative people, they need to be together a little bit more often because they have to communicate a lot. But they're on the computers all day long anyway, and they mostly are remote. It just depends on the team. So I like to give people flexibility in where they're working and we set goals. And as long as they're reaching their goals and I can tell that they're working and they're fulfilling all of their duties, we haven't noticed any reduction in productivity at all. I work 2 days from home and 3 days in the office just to make sure that I have time to take care of everything that I need to. So, whether it's family things or work things, as long as I make sure I do everything I need and I stay on top of things, then we're good. Setting that kind of hybrid work policy really helped a lot of people because they have their own families and it's just sometimes it's hard to balance. So, I think it helps a lot. But boundaries are definitely necessary. Yeah.
Right. And I'm curious to know your personal boundaries, being balancing the work and the home life. And you are a mom and
Mhm.
you have your house things and you have your whole home life. How do you make sure you don't bring work home? Or how do you tap into those boundaries from a personal perspective so that you are now honoring your kids and your spouse and the friends and all the social life and things that as personal fulfillment?
I'm not perfect at it, but I think I have 4 kids. My oldest is 14 and my youngest is 3. So we have a quite the age range and a lot of different needs for the different kids. But I think what really helps is having a really set schedule and making sure that the kids are at school in the morning, and right after we drop them off, I go straight to work. My kids actually go to 3 different schools, so drop-offs in the morning are super fun. And so my husband does half the kid drop-offs, I do the other half, and then we go to school. I do as much work as I can until 3:30, and at 3:30, then we do kid stuff, and then my husband helps a lot too, so he drives so much in the afternoons, trying to take kids to appointments. Sports is like baseball season starting, so I'm just a little nervous there, but yeah, so we have a lot of stuff going on in the afternoons, and then I work in the evenings as well. So I still try to cook for them a few times a week, and I have like my set easy recipes that are super fast to make. We just try to set like dinner time as family time. So no matter what we're doing, it's so hard to have a no technology policy at dinner time too, but we try that. We have to remind each other all the time. We're like, turn that off. This is family time. We're talking. And so we do that. Bedtime we do together too. So we get everyone together, we say a prayer together, we talk about family stuff, and then everyone goes to sleep. Weekends, crazy as well, but just trying to make sure I find time for my kids, making sure they know that I'm there and I'm present and that I'm at all their activities and I'm trying to be there for their presentations. It's just a lot to balance. I feel like I'm a crazy person sometimes, but at least my husband reminds me about things all the time too. So he's pretty good at checking the calendars. He's a good partner to have.
You need somebody almost to keep you balanced and in check. And I love that you mentioned about your me time. And that was going to be my next question. Like, where do you find you to have your downtime, the things that still light you up and bring you joy and fulfillment and freedom in that aspect of you're giving so much of yourself to others? How do you receive for yourself?
That's the hardest one, right? Because I think as women, we forget ourselves so easily. It's so easy to just give to your kids, to give to your spouse, and to give to other people, but just totally forget about yourself. So actually, my me time has turned into me and my daughter time. 'Cause my daughter is a teenager now, and she reminds me, she's, hey, mom, we need to go. Let's go get a manicure sometime. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should get a manicure with you sometime. It's just, oh yeah, I need to do something. My husband tells me to. You need to go get a massage. I'm like, oh, okay. I should schedule that. Or he'll tell me, you need to go get lunch with somebody, just take a break. So he tries to keep me because he can tell when I'm getting really stressed. And then at night, I try to have time for myself. And whether it's just like zoning out and watching TV, like it just a little wind down time, but just something that's not related to work and that's not related to kids. So, like an hour a night is great if I can do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you bring in this element of flexibility because you've recognized that as much as I tied down my routines and my systems, life happens. Like it's never going
Uh,
to be perfect, but it's perfect for you and your family. And I think that's the message for those that are listening is that no matter what routine or system or balancing act you find yourself in, you have to make sure that it's something that works for you. And even in these certain seasons, that would probably change. As you said, your son has baseball. So what happens when baseball seasons end and you go into the next? And so I love that your level of awareness and bringing everything full circle and giving yourself permission to ebb and flow as life keeps on lifing.
yeah. I mean, with kids, you just cannot tell what's going to happen. Every day is a surprise. Just making sure that you get those reminders once in a while that you have to take some time out. But scheduling as much as you can. I am not a great scheduler, as my family can attest to, because I don't like to schedule like more than 2 months out. So I put vacations in with our my work schedule right now. So I travel a lot to Asia to take care of business, and for spring break, I'm taking my 2 older kids with me, so they'll come, and our kids have different spring breaks, and so my husband and I are gonna take our younger 2 on the next spring break, and we rely on, of course, grandparents to come and help. So it's not like a one-person show. It's family helping. We're all helping each other do it. And then my husband needs his alone time, so we have to schedule that out. I need my alone time, so I have to schedule
Yeah.
that out too. So, yeah, we try to do alone time together, family time,
Yeah.
whenever we can fit it in.
Yeah, I love that you shared so openly about that because so many people are just like, I don't even know if I'm doing it right because it feels like chaos. Or maybe somebody's on the other side listening and be like, I love what works for me. And I've realized this is a season that I'm in, and maybe it's going to change when the next season happens. And there's this elusiveness that this work life balance is so what achievable. But I think that's what's unique is that every family and every individual is so different that the dynamic has to fit what works for them and that there is no one size fits all. So I think that's so important to note because what works for you is not going to work for me, and what works for me is not going to work for those that are listening. And so sometimes we take these stories and we take little bits and pieces and start applying them into our lives to see what does and doesn't fit. And then when it doesn't fit, you just scrap it. You try something else on. And so I love that flexibility aspect of it because you're not so married to this rigid outcomes. And one of the things that you had mentioned, which I want to touch base on, is how these dynamics were set up because you brought in your personal values. You brought in what traditionally works in other areas that now you can bring this into your family and your work life and have that quote unquote balancing act.
When we first got married, when you don't have kids, you have so much freedom. You can do whatever you want. You just have to worry about your spouse. But as time goes on, we realize that's just not going to work anymore. Life changes, work changes. At one point in time, my husband was working for the State Department, and we were stationed in Tokyo, and he was a cultural affairs officer in the embassy there. And I was like, okay, we're moving to Tokyo. We had a newborn, and I worked from our apartment, and I just traveled to nearby countries where we had business from there. At that time, I was just traveling like once a month with my daughter. She was like my little doll, just carry her in a backpack, and we just go to different countries, and I just take her with me, and so she got used to that. But when we moved back to the US, it's so different. It was like, "Oh, okay, now I'm going to the office every day. Kids are in school. What are we gonna do?" So everything changes, but I think communication is key. Talking to each other and telling each other what's not working when you're not happy or when you are happy. So, taking maybe a weekend trip to somewhere nearby or going on a girls' trip or a guys' trip or something like that. So, just trying to keep ourselves in focus, but make sure that we communicate really well about it.
Communication is key. And especially when you're starting a family or holding that family together, having those key components are a big piece of not only just the communication role in your business, obviously, is so needed. The business can really take off and being in those leadership roles. The same application applies in your home life, in your marriage. And then that's passed on to your children as well because they're recognizing the values. So when you have this values based dynamic to build the family business, which obviously you guys have done very well for all these numbers of years, that bleeds into what you're doing currently in your family life. And I didn't love that because you're watching these two separate but different areas of your life flourish and thrive. And I think that really speaks volume because you're setting the stage, setting the tone. You're very crystal clear on what that looks like. And I know that you had talked briefly before we hit record about some of the behind the scenes things that I love for you to share with our listeners as well. And that's really about goal setting because when you guys communicate what it is you're working on and towards, then everyone on the team is aware this is where we're shooting for. This is what the outcome must be. So let's talk about that and bring the dynamic back because the same application I would imagine applies for both for your business as it does for your family life and how we can create this ecosystem that feels natural. So when you check out the business mentally or physically not there, how you can be
Mhm.
so present in your family life.
As we ended the year, I think everyone is thinking, "Oh, what happened this year? What did I do?" And so for work, with all my team, my C-suite, my managers, we keep on thinking, what were the good things? What were the bad things? How can we improve? And so our focus has been a lot on setting goals, quarterly goals and monthly goals, weekly goals, and not just for our teams, but personally. Like, what can I do better as a person? We've tried to set up systems where people can thrive personally. We have a new book club that we started the end of last year to try and get people to read self improvement books or leadership books just to help them think outside of themselves because it's so easy to get tunnel vision and to only see through your own lens. We've also been really focused on people finding their why about why they want to do this, why they want to help their team succeed, and why they want to spread the message about health and wellness and helping people achieve those goals in their lives. I think we started working on it in September, actually. So it takes us quite a while to get through our reviews and make sure everyone's aligned, and we finalized everything in December. And as we started in January, it was great because when I talked to my different teams this month, I talked to manufacturing was it yesterday, and I said, okay, so how aligned are you the beginning of this year to really get started on all your goals? And they're like, we're focused. They're like, we've talked about it. We know what we're supposed to do. They got everything in place. They talked to all their managers, their team, everyone in production. So they're really focused on the goals. And so as we do that, I feel like we can really improve and you can measure your improvement. It's hard to tell where you're going, but they have to be realistic. They can't be something that's a pipe dream where you're just like, oh, I'm going to all of a sudden do this much in sales. You just have to take measured goals. That's why we try to do it every monthly and then quarterly. So you can make sure that you're being realistic, but that you're really stretching yourself. And personally, too, I do it with my kids. And we talk about mostly what do you want to achieve for school. So I set goals with my kids, and each one is different. So no kid is alike. And I don't do it with my 3-year-old because he has no idea what I'm talking about. But I was just talking to my 10-year-old, my oldest son, and set for him. He knows his physical things. He wants to do baseball, which is great. And I talked about spiritual things too for him. And I was like, okay, what can we do to help you learn more? And we set some reading goals for him and activities that he can do to grow spiritually. So I feel like you really have to start in the beginning of the year on a positive note and make sure that everyone is focused on the goals and that they know what they're supposed to do. But if they don't achieve it, it's okay. You just go back, do a little rewind, see what you didn't do, what you do better, and try and do it at the next quarter.
I love that you're not only setting the precedents in your business, but you're teaching and leading your team to develop themselves beyond just their tasks and expectations at work. But then you find this commonality where you're leading into book clubs to focus on personal growth, development, leadership that's going to strengthen them outside of the workplace and real applications into their home life. And then what you're doing in your home life is teaching your kids the same things, bringing the values, teaching them the principles, teaching them how goal setting to achieve their desires, their outcomes, and the importance of that. And I love that you bring in all this because it's such a value oriented family. And I love how you're marrying two different, but yet finding the unity in between. And I think I don't see that happen a lot in life and biz. And maybe it's because you're in the CEO position and you want to see your business thrive in that lane. And I love that. So I just want to commend you because you're doing such a fantastic job doing it. And even though it might not feel like it, but you're seeing the fruits of your work come to fruition and you're seeing the change happen in your business and the same applications you're watching your children grow and thrive. So that's a beautiful gift.
I just want to make sure like our employees know and our salespeople know that we care about them and that we're here for them. So whatever the goals they have, we're going to be there to support them and push with them. And you have that drive to help them even more.
And having that family-based business, it's like that motto, when you're here, your family. You want to be treated as such, and you want to keep your team so rooted in what you guys have built all these years because of the values that align with your company. I'm curious to know when it comes to leadership in your home and in your business, what confidence looks like in practice.
I think some people may think confidence is more having the right answer all the time, but for me, it's listening and making sure that I'm doing what is best for everyone. Because I realize that I do not have the right answer all the time. When we're trying new products, even different flavors, obviously have my favorites, right? But I don't always choose my favorites. I want to see what other people like because what I like is not what everyone likes. So I think listening to other people, seeing what their opinion is, and making sure that we're doing things more holistically. I think sometimes people think I'm a little slow to make decisions too, because they're like, snap, let's just make a decision and go. But I need time to think. So I want to make sure I'm making the right decision and that it fits everyone as a whole. Sometimes I think leadership is taking a step back, listening to your team, and making sure that everyone is on the same page. Because if you can't really force changes. If you want to go somewhere, it's really hard to go there if you're dragging feet along. So I feel like you really have to get consensus. Everyone has to be on the same page. We have to understand where we're coming from. And if we can achieve that, then we can really reach the next goal. Obviously, I can tell them I want to increase sales X amount. Are they going to do it if they don't believe in it? I don't think so. So I just need them to make it their own goal and also to feel like they can do it. So listening to them, making sure that they have their programs built the way that they need to, but they understand what our expectations are at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that's very unique and key as well because the adaptability. And when you're listening to what your team is saying, you're listening to what the clients are saying, you're listening to the needs. And so now that adaptability of, okay, even though this is my preference or my favorite, what if it's not theirs? And so now you're quick to make those changes. So I love that because with confidence and leadership, that's the same thing. And I love what you had said. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being confident in your listening abilities. And that is key. Because when we listen, when we slow down enough and pause, we actually listen and we hear what the unspoken is actually trying to say, the communication there. So that goes back to your point earlier about communication being key. I'm just curious to know, what is your greatest accomplishment and achievement?
I'd always say being a mom because what can I take with me in this life is my family. I can't really take money. I can't really take my house, but I can always have my relationships with my family. So I feel like my own family, me and my husband, my 4 kids, but also my extended family, so my siblings and my nieces and nephews, because in the end, I really think that family is the most important.
And so as we wrap up today's conversation here, I'd love for you to share with our listeners where they could find more about your family business and then also how they can get in touch and follow along with you in your story and your journey online.
Yeah, our website is sunrider.com, and we're on Instagram and Facebook, Sunrider, Sunrider. And yeah, you can just follow us along. We're on YouTube too. Sunrider INTL International. We always have updates on Instagram, and I really love that people are discovering a lot of our skincare products now. We're getting a lot of recognition for our Condensed Pure skincare line, which is all natural ingredients. I told my daughter, I was like, just read the label and tell me what you think. And she's, hey, did you know that of all these products, the Sunrider one is the only one that's all natural and isn't harmful for your skin? I'm like, thank you for reading the labels and telling me that. I could tell her all I want, but she just had to do the research herself. So yeah, having recognition that we have wonderful natural skincare products that are good for your skin and safe to use. And also our lip colors and things like that. My kids love trying out the new products. My nieces and nephews love it. And so I try to keep them involved as much as possible. So I hope everyone can follow along with us online and see all the new things that we have.
That's incredible. So, of course, all the links will be in the show notes below. So be sure to check them out. And if you are a fan of the products, make sure to let Sunny know, like connect with them. Gosh, this has just been incredible. And you guys are, like I said, making change throughout the world. And that's, I think, the biggest part is to have the impact. And you guys are doing a fantastic job at that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.